We cruised through the fjords of Norway. It was like the most peaceful, adrenaline rushing activity.
I was like, I don't know if I can go behind that waterfall.
If you slip and fall, you will die. How quickly can you be at the top of the mountain? And we were like, done. So that is definitely a tip to take away. Now let's talk about the cruise itself.
You can't beat the sun you can't beat the sun in Norway. The sun rises so early.
The customer service was really great. However,
every once in a while I would just stop and be like, really floating on the water, and I'm sitting down in a theater right now.
I just felt like no one told me that, so hopefully a mom out there can take away that tip. Today, I'm super pumped to be joined by my husband, Ray Wormers. You guys have not seen him yet. He is usually behind the camera, but today you guys get to meet him for the very first time.
Super excited to be here.
We just got back from our family vacation in Norway. We took a cruise through the fjords of Norway. So we're just going to get into all of that today. We're just really going to go over our entire trip and debrief what we normally would. We're just going to take you guys along on the journey with us.
All right, let's unravel Norway.
What I'm thinking is that we start with talking about travel, then move on to the ship, and then talk about each destination from Norway.
All right.
So we flew from Birmingham to Dallas and then Dallas to London. What were your thoughts on that part of the trip as a whole?
Well, that part for me was my own new experience because I had never been to England. So that was a new country for me because we had a one-night stay in London. Let me back up from between Birmingham and Dallas. We had obviously a lot of stuff to carry, and I wanted to give Beckham his shout out for carrying his own luggage through the airport.
Shout out the 2-year-old.
Yes. Sarah had bought Beckham a suitcase on wheels that turned into a bed. Essentially comes on a leash, and he was super excited to pull it around the airport. Beckham ended up sleeping pretty much the whole way from Dallas to London.
Yeah, so in Dallas, we had a 3-hour delay. So we stayed in the Centurion Lounge there for 3 hours. That was one of my favorite lounges I've ever been to. They had a play area for Beckham. They had a really good buffet. They had a spa I didn't get to use because they were all booked up for the night because there were also so many delays. So there were a lot of people there. But they did a great job with the crowd control. Some people complain about lounges being overcrowded, but there was a line downstairs. So they kept people moving in and out as quickly as they could. But it definitely didn't feel too overcrowded in the lounge itself. But Beckham crushed it in the lounge. He behaved really well. And then the flight went really, really well. He slept almost the whole time. We flew British Airways, which I don't know that I have flown British Airways. If I did, it wasn't knowingly, it was through like American. But I was really impressed with the meals on British Airways. I thought their meals were really good. Their staff were great. They found out I was gluten-free. I forgot to put my preferences ahead of time, but they like found me gluten-free meals, and they passed word along to the other flight attendants so that whoever was serving me knew that I was gluten-free, which I really appreciated. And they were really kind to Beckham, which is always such a plus. But yeah, that was my thoughts on the actual flight.
One more thing about Dallas. We left the night of half of America being able to see the Northern Lights. And it was just super ironic that we were going to Norway and we never got to see the Northern Lights.
Yeah, it was pretty frustrating that everyone, like we were literally going to Norway where you can normally see the Northern Lights. And we did not get to see them. And it was when like all of America got to see them.
Because we looked it up before we left, like, oh, I wonder if we'll see the Northern Lights. But typically, if I remember right from what we read, they typically end in March is like as late as they go.
So when we landed in London, it was 10 a.m. So we really needed to push through the day to, adjust our bodies with the jet lag. Beckham did pretty good. we were really, really impressed with him. I feel like we all adjusted pretty well. Our one day in London, we saw Winter Castle, just kind of hung out around like airport area. We didn't go too far because the next morning we took a shuttle to Southampton where our cruise to Norway took off. The flights back were harder. Beckham did not sleep pretty much the whole time. I was up for 24 hours. Ray got to sleep some. We were kind of separated, so I had Beckham with me and he was across the aisle. Beckham slept for maybe like 2 hours total, and I don't know, I just could not fall asleep in those 2 hours. So I ended up being awake for like 24 hours. We flew Delta back. We also stopped in the Centurion Lounge in London Heathrow. It was good, but not as good as the Dallas one.
It was a lot smaller.
Like the space was smaller, the buffet was smaller. There was a play area that happened to be like right outside the Centurion Lounge. So Beckham and Worm would go out there.
It was really nice. It was like a legit indoor playground, padded, and it was really nice.
There just gets to be a point where a 2-year-old can't sit still in a quiet lounge anymore. And those lounges can be pretty quiet. And this one definitely was quieter than the Dallas one. So we just would take him out there and get his wiggles out and then bring him back in when we felt like he could chill and hang out. Honestly, I am a Delta girl till I die, but I wasn't like that impressed with the flight back. Like I felt like the food was mid, the staff were mid. That like calzone pizza thing was really good. They already had my gluten-free preferences. So like every snack, everything they had for me was gluten-free, but I just felt like everyone was like.
Did you have the calzone? That was gluten-free?
They had a gluten-free option, yeah.
Well, I did like the Delta movie selections more, and food. Honestly, yeah, I would definitely give the upper hand to British Airways on the way there for food.
Would you give anything else to Delta besides movie selection?
No.
Like, I feel like their pillows and blankets weren't as good. Their food wasn't as good. Their staff weren't as good. I don't know. I'm usually Delta till I die, but like, they just kind of disappointed me on this flight.
I mean, I did notice the food wasn't as good, but staffing wise, I don't know. I didn't notice any difference really. I think it was just.
I don't think they were as like friendly, accommodating for a toddler.
Yeah, I guess they didn't check. And now that I'm thinking about it in that aspect, like I feel like British Airways came by and like checked on things. And yeah, I just don't remember hearing hide or hair from Deltas.
So that's the travel there. Now let's talk about the cruise itself. So we embarked on the ship in Southampton, England, and we cruised through the fjords of Norway. We had 4 cruise ports within Norway, and then we came back to Southampton where we disembarked. So before going into the itinerary and the ports, I would love to talk about like Royal Caribbean itself. We took the Anthem of the Seas ship. Like, I would just love to hear your thoughts on like the ship and your experience on the ship. This was your first cruise, right?
Yeah. So yes, first cruise, had zero concept of really what to expect. I'd never like even thought about going on one really, I guess. We watched some videos of the Anthem of the Seas. And so I knew it was going to be big, obviously a cruise ship. But I remember I was like, I didn't realize how big. Like
the ship was massive.
Yeah. So yeah, I was astonished. I was like, this thing is legit a floating hotel. Max capacity, I think, was 5,000. We were like in the 4,000 and some change range. So we were almost at max capacity. 16 floors, 15 like full floors, 16 floor with just a fitness center. Probably the most shocking thing that was on the ship to me was there was 2 theaters. And I was just like, every once in a while I would just stop and be like, really floating on the water, and I'm sitting down in a theater right now.
Yeah, it was a really great cruise. The activities offered were great. The childcare was great. The staff were really great. I really, really loved how like our cabin steward like remembered all of our names, was so kind to us. Our servers were so kind. They remembered our preferences, our food preferences, our drink preferences. They were super kind to Beckham. They got his food out before our appetizers ever even came out. There was a mess up with one of our activities, and they over-delivered in making it up to us. I mean, they sent us chocolate covered strawberries. They sent us cupcakes. They made Worm and me a lunch reservation at one of the specialty restaurants and comped it all. And the customer service was really great. However, I did not love how sales pitchy this cruise was. It's been a long time since I've been on a like normal cruise ship. And so maybe it's just because I did semester at sea. They're obviously not trying to sell you very much on semester at sea. I swear every place I turned, they were trying to sell me something. I mean, so much so that like we were getting sales pitches at our dinner from the restaurant manager.
I went to Sarah was supposed to come with me. I think you decided just to take a nap, and you didn't miss much. It was a how to fix your back pain, and I thought it was going to be like a stretching or like maybe a massage or something like that, and it was a guy trying to sell arch supports.
I mean, I felt the same thing. Like I went to multiple things where they pitched these spa specials, and I did fall for one. But then even in my massage, she was trying to sell me upgrades. She tried to sell me for this like $20 oil, de-stress oil. And I just kept saying, no, just use the default. And then I find out after that she still used that oil as the default. So I felt like the sales pitch, I understand it's cruise, they have to make their money, but like you're also already, like you've already paid to be there. And if you want the additional experience, like at a hotel, you don't get those same sales pitches. I don't know. I didn't love that, but overall the food was really good.
So let's talk about food. Favorite restaurant that we ate at?
I think the pizza.
Really?
What was it called? Davenport's?
No, Sorrento's.
Oh, Davenport's is a restaurant here.
Yeah, there was nothing during Davenport's.
I guess Sorrento. I mean, I loved Sorrento's. I don't get gluten-free pizza very often.
That's fair.
I mean, what are you going to say, Jamie's? Jamie's was good. Jamie's was really good. It was the specialty Italian restaurant, but it's the only specialty restaurant we did. So the whole family went to, we haven't even mentioned, but his parents and his siblings were on this ship with us. So there were 7 of us total, but we did a dinner with everyone and then we did a lunch just us. But that was the only specialty restaurant we went to. But there was like a pub. We got like nachos there. Sorrento's was the pizza place. Windjammer's Continental. The main dining room. I thought the main dining room food was really good every night.
That's why I had to kind of pause and think about it. I think Jamie's was, not to take away from our servers at the main dining hall, but like Jamie's brought us out like, I don't even know how many appetizers, and like we just ate food. So like that part was cool. And that part was good. Like just to try like a quarter of the menu. And like half of that was free. Half of that was like, well, we'll just bring it out for you to try. So I think the experience of Jamie's was the best, but the food, like the main dining hall and Jamie's food quality, I was on the same page, and the food was good overall.
I mean, I say Sorrento's, but it's hard because like that's not comparable to like the steak dinner I had at all. Like obviously the steak dinner was really good. So, I mean, I don't know. They're not comparable at all.
And Sorrento's was, I mean, I don't remember the hours, but it was round the clock pizza. So that's cool. Yeah. And Sarah doesn't get to enjoy very often.
Yeah. And then there was Starbucks. So we got coffee pretty much every morning. You had to like upgrade your drink package to get that. So that was a little annoying, but it is worth it when you get a Starbucks drink every day. Okay. Moving on from food. This is something that I want to note because no one told me this before I went on the cruise. And as a mom, I feel like this is so important to know. I have so many notes for Royal Caribbean on how they can improve their child care because Royal Caribbean is known for being a family-focused cruise line. And I just feel like they're kind of missing it with the childcare. Now, the employees themselves that take care of your kids, oh my gosh, they were so great. They took such great care of Beckham. But their booking system is to literally like write things down on a piece of paper and then you take a picture of it. You can't pre-book ahead of time and you like can't see your reservation. Like you can't book on the app. You can't book online. You can't chat with them. Like when they do have your kid, you can't chat with them through the app. They give you a ship phone so you can call them. And that is only for when you were actually on the ship. So that's what I want to point out is no one told me ahead of time. And it's not anywhere that I saw on their website that when you are in port, if you leave your kid on the ship, you can't contact the daycare in any way and they won't contact you. It does not matter if you have an international phone plan. They will not call you and they will not give you a ship phone. So, I mean, if we got off for an 8-hour excursion and something happened to Beckham in hour 1, like what were they going to do?
Yeah.
I hated that as a mom. We chose not to, and we were very blessed and had in-laws with us on the cruise, but we chose not to leave Beckham on the ship when we were in port. And I think that if we had not had the in-laws, I still think we would have taken him off with us. Like, I don't think at this age I would have been comfortable with that. Now, if your kid is like 9 and for some reason you want to leave him on the ship, I feel like that's different. But Beckham can't communicate everything if something was wrong. Like, I'm thinking like allergic reactions or something.
Yeah, no, I had called at one point when we were trying to still prep and plan, but I remember them saying that it was based on a first come first serve. So that was like my first, I just felt like Royal Caribbean would have a better system than that.
Yeah, because I mean, we literally dropped off our our carry-ons in our cabin, and we immediately went to the nursery and they were already booked, fully booked for some days.
And we boarded the ship early.
Yeah. I don't know that there's a better way than first come first serve, but it was just like kind of disheartening to know like there were days that we wanted to do activities that we couldn't all do as a family because someone had to watch Beckham. I just felt like no one told me that. So hopefully a mom out there can take away that tip and plan her own. I think it's okay. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think you just need to know and plan your trip around that because it definitely affected. Yeah, it definitely affected how we viewed import days. Like we were going to have Beckham off the ship no matter what. And, you know, we're about to get into the itinerary and there were things that we did that I don't know that we would have been able to do had we not have in-laws because we would not have been comfortable with leaving Beckham on the ship with no contact to him. That's just so scary. I hated the idea of like something could happen and they won't even call my phone. Anything else you want to say about the cruise? The shows were pretty good. I mean, none of them like blew me away. I don't know if cruise shows ever blow people away.
I feel like The Magician was easily my favorite. That was the most entertaining. It was about 45 minutes to an hour. In the context of being on the cruise ship, I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. The activities were fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw a magician. We saw like a musical. We saw this odd show the last night. I don't even know how to describe it. It was a multimedia entertainment is what it truly was. Like that's what it was a multimedia entertainment.
Yeah, I don't know what I would call it.
That was so odd. Some of his family saw a comedy show. The arcade was good. Yes. The spa was great. I loved the spa. None of us got in the pool ever. A lot of people got in the pool. We just like, I'm not a huge pool person in general. Public pools really gross me out. And then something about like cruise goers and public pools even more.
I never we're one and the same about being in the pool. I knew it was gonna kind of be cold. It ended up being pretty hot, but it was while we were in port. So while we're in port, I'm not gonna go to the pool on the ship. So every door that I might have had open for the pool was closed in some way, shape, or form.
The last thing I'll really say on like the cruise itself is, okay, like I said, the last cruise I ever went on was Semester at Sea. The ship was obviously immensely smaller. Most of the inside things were not entertainment. They were classrooms, libraries, that kind of thing. Anyways, I spent the majority of my time outside. No matter what country we were leaving, no matter what the temperature was, hot, cold, whatever, I spent the majority of my time like on outside decks. And so I was very surprised at how little time I spent outside on this ship. I think it's just because there are so many restaurants, so many theaters, like the arcade, the spa, like everything was inside besides the decks. And I think because there was so much entertainment, I didn't find like self-entertainment. Like on Semester at Sea, I was reading books, I was playing cards, like all these like self-entertainment things that if I'm going to have to do, why would I sit inside? Like, let me go outside. So I don't know. Not that I'm disappointed that I didn't sit outside more. I don't know if that's like for all the reasons I just said, or it could be as simple as I have a 2-year-old now. And so we were inside for nap time. We were inside for snack time. We were like just not running around the the deck outside. I don't know really, and it might be a formula of both, but I did notice when I got back, I was like, I didn't spend any time just like sitting on the decks.
I tried the first probably 2 or 3 days. I wanted to get up early and try to catch the sunrise in the fjords. And I think the first morning, the first time I tried it, I got up at 5:30, tried to get up there, and the sun had already like come over the mountains and everything. And I bumped it to the next morning. I got up at 5, and what I learned is you can't beat the sun, and you can't beat the sun in Norway. The sun rises so early, and 5 was as early as I was willing to wake up on vacation. So I kind of put that to rest, and it really wasn't enjoyable as pretty as it was at that time. It was still so cold at that point in the day. It was still so cold and so windy. Like it really wasn't even that fun to be outside. So I think the times it would have been enjoyable to be out on the deck in the pool was when midday in the port, and
we weren't
going to. Yeah,
doing
good
much
to go
more
back to the
exciting
formula
things.
you mentioned.
And I think 2 more things for that formula are, one, the sun, kind of like you mentioned, but on the back end too. Like I didn't see any sunsets, whereas on SAS, like I watched every sunset. It was one of my favorite things to do, but the sun stayed up till like 10:30, and
Literally.
with a 2-year-old, another part of the formula, it just wasn't realistic to stay up to watch the sunsets. And then the last part of the formula, I think, is we did have a balcony, whereas on SAS, the only way for me to get fresh air was to go on a deck. And we did spend a lot of time on our balcony.
Yeah.
So I think that the balcony kind of balances out with lack of time on the deck. But just something I noticed, not necessarily something I regret, because I don't know if it would have even been enjoyable in the conditions that we just mentioned, but just something that I noticed that we didn't do very much.
Yeah. All right. Now, in-port activities?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So what was port number 1?
Bergen. I think Bergen as a place to stop was probably my favorite.
Really?
We didn't do anything in Bergen. Well, we did the funicular in Bergen. And went to the top of the mountain, pet the goats. Beckham loved doing that. That was fun.
So it was Mount Floyan, I think.
Something like that. Sorry to any Norwegian listeners. Yes, went up the funicular. There's just a one restaurant up there.
Yeah, so there's a restaurant, I think it's called the Floy Restaurant. It just reopened, but it's a 100-year-old restaurant that was refurbished this past year. Beautiful restaurant. Honestly, the food was like meh. Like it was good.
You're paying for
but you're
view.
Definitely paying for the view. It was a beautiful view. But yeah, they had a huge playground in the woods, mountain goats. We knew that this stop was for Beckham. We knew that a lot of our trip we were doing for us, and a lot of the excursions would be for us. We're very aware that our son is probably not going to remember this trip, so it's not like we were going to invest this whole trip in him, but we also wanted to make sure he was having fun too. So we knew very early in the planning that this port was going to be mostly for him. So the playground, the goats, the funicular, it was all so that he had something he could enjoy. And I think we did that very successfully. I think that we didn't know how long the line was going to be to get up the funicular, even with prepaid tickets. Now, I'm so glad we got prepaid tickets. That is definitely a tip to take away, because the line for those that did not prepay was even longer and slower. So definitely recommend that.
And we skipped because of stroller.
Yeah, we did skip a lot because of the stroller too.
A lot. Yeah.
But we weren't able, I wanted to do, I think that they have a good fish market is something I had written down. I would have loved to see that. We didn't get to see that. We just spent a lot more time in the lines to and from the funicular up and down the mountain than we thought we were going to. And then...
So if you do ride this funicular up Mount Floyan, it has a middle stop on the way down. It didn't stop on the way up, right?
Mm-mm.
On the way down, it has a halfway point that you can get out and hike the rest of the way. And
we just weren't even paying attention.
No. And
we should have known that was not the end.
So we hopped off and get to looking around, and we're like, oh, wait a minute. And it doesn't pick up at this point either, So now our only option is to hoof it down. So
It was fine. It was a beautiful walk down.
Yeah, it was a nice day. A lot of it was shaded.
People hike up and down this mountain rather than take the funicular all the time. And I mean, I say hike. It's just a walk. It's just a kind of steep up and down walk. So it was fine. It just ate into a lot of our day. So we didn't really get to do much else. It was a nice city. We did stop by the Ferris wheel. Beckham wasn't tall enough, so we didn't get to do that. But that was pretty much our day in Bergen. And then Port 2, Olden.
Which butts up to favorite event, which was kind of a runaround. For those of you who don't know, Sarah and I tried to go paragliding on our honeymoon in Slovenia, and it got canceled due to weather. We got our redemption doing it in Norway, had it planned to do it in Olden.
So like an hour before we get off the ship, we get a text from our paragliding guide that said a man was missing in the mountains. Like, what are the odds? What are the odds? Like, if you had told me weather, okay, like I get it that I want to be safe. I totally understand. Like, please cancel if it's due to weather. But a man was missing in the mountains, and so they closed down the airspace
For helicopters.
so we couldn't fly.
Yeah.
So we're like so bummed. This was like the highlight of the trip that we were looking forward to. And we get off the ship and we end up with his parents on this like train.
Hop on, hop off.
Hop on, hop off. And it wasn't even like big stops. Like we stopped at a lake.
No. Yeah.
And then we stopped at like the convenience store. And then the trip was done.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. I mean, about Olden was, I mean, there's nothing. There's a ship port. There's a convenience store. There's a really pretty lake
It was so
up the
pretty,
road
yeah.
that this bus will take you to. And that's it.
But like that is not our type of travel at all. And we were trying to be good sports. And I know that like his parents were just trying to find something as well, because like all of our plans, they were going to come watch us paraglide. So this was like our entire day. We were going to take the skylift up the mountain, but the skylift was like, it was like $75 a person. It was really expensive. And so when we found out that paragliding got canceled, we had just done a skylift in Bergen. We were like, there's just no reason to go up to the top of the mountain. I wanted to do kayaking when we got off the ship, and Worm made such a great point. Looking back, praise God, he thought of this, but he was like, what? He was like, what if we get on the kayak and then they reopen the airspace and then we can go paragliding? And I was like, that is a great point. And that's exactly what ended up happening. So thank goodness we were not on that kayak. Otherwise, we would have had to give up paragliding, because we are on this yellow train tour. It stopped at the convenience store. I think that's where it ended. So like, we're not even on it anymore. We're at the convenience store, and I get a text from the guide, and he was like, they opened a little part of the airspace. Like, how quickly can you be at the top of the mountain? And we were like, done. We're doing it. By then, I had kind of like put my mind away that I was jumping off a mountain. And so I had to like re-hype myself up really quickly. And so I was a lot more scared going into it than I thought I was going to be. Yeah. We've both skydived. We've both done crazy things. And so getting scared kind of surprised me. I was way more scared than Worm was, or at least letting on. If I would, I would ask you if you were scared.
Yeah.
But like you would say like, yeah.
Yeah. I would like, and even our instructor, because we each went in tandem with a different individual. We were the only
ones. This was not like an advertised.
Yeah, this was definitely an off the beaten path.
We saw a YouTube video of this guy do it. And so we knew it was a thing. But we had to dig so hard to find a contact. So if anyone is wanting to paraglide in Olden, contact me and I will give you this contact, because it was really hard to find. I literally just texted this WhatsApp number and hoped for a response. And the first one I texted didn't respond. So it was just really hard. Yeah, it wasn't an advertised excursion. Sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to put that in there.
No, it's okay. Even my instructor was like, you should be nervous. Like he's been doing this for 12 years total. He's been doing it tandem for 6 years. And he's like, I still get nervous. And he's like, I would be more concerned if you weren't, because in the reality of it, you're going to the top of a mountain and you're running and jumping off.
What we both had a misconception of is you do not jump off the mountain.
Yeah.
There was a point of time that we didn't even know that the parachute is already deployed.
That's what I was
like when I started this whole journey into like, okay, let's do this. I thought you jump off the mountain like skydiving and then pull your chute. You don't do either of those things. You just, first of all, the chute is deployed. It's out the whole time. And second, you just run until your feet don't touch the ground anymore. It was like the most peaceful, adrenaline rushing activity.
The difference in the wingsuit and the paragliding is you kind of get lifted off the mountain with it, because you have access to this parachute. So you have to run, probably ran 10 yards ish, at least I did.
I did less than 3 steps.
And I had to get going. I guess I'm heavier.
No, I did like 3 steps. My feet were off the ground.
And then we were flying.
Okay, I gave this metaphor to someone, and I think it's just such a great metaphor of the experiences I have had. I think paragliding is a perfect mixture of hot air ballooning and skydiving. So hot air ballooning is fun, but you never get an adrenaline rush. Like, it's peaceful the whole time to me, but you get the good scenic view from high up. Skydiving is so much adrenaline, and I feel like I almost didn't get to enjoy the views of skydiving because my adrenaline, like even after you pull the chute,
you're in fight or flight so much that you're not even concerned.
Yeah. So like, obviously when you're free falling, like I didn't see anything. Like I think I kind of blacked out a little bit. I think paragliding, you never have the free fall. And so my adrenaline wasn't like going crazy as much. I obviously had an adrenaline rush, but not like skydiving. It was enough of an adrenaline rush to get that fix, but I still was able to enjoy the experience the whole time. I loved it. I can totally see us doing more paragliding in the future. Like 100%. Like if you gave me hot air ballooning, skydiving, and paragliding as an option in like a scenic destination, 100% I would pick paragliding.
And yeah, now that I know what paragliding's about, when I landed, and Sarah and I talked about this after, when I landed, I was like, can we do that again? It really does allow you to see a lot more, because we were in the air for probably 10 minutes. Paragliding would be on the list of things to do again.
All right, so stop 3 was Geiranger.
Yeah.
And we hiked a waterfall.
Yeah. I don't remember. Do you remember the name of it? Vesta?
Oh my gosh, no, it was so long. We'll put it in a caption like right here. I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Did we ever find out how long it actually was? 1.7?
Okay,
miles?
All Trails said it was 1.8 kilometers. That's like less than a mile. Usually All Trails tells you like the full hike. Like if it's like there and back, that would be like the total would be 1.8 kilometers. When we finished, which we added a couple miles to the end because we hiked back to the ship, but it said we hiked 8 miles. So I have no idea how long this hike was supposed to be, because it was way, way longer than what All Trails said, which was fine. We had the time, we had the strength and the ability, but yeah, I don't know where All Trails got 1.8 kilometers. So you start this hike at Vesteras Farm, and to get to the farm, you still have to hike like half a mile from the road. It was like an easy walk. I will say we could not get a taxi to save our life.
Yeah.
We ended up doing like a hop on, hop off bus, and spent a lot of money on this one bus to take us to this one stop. Hindsight's 2020, because like we could have hiked up to the starting point, but then we would have used so much of our energy just getting to the trailhead. Yeah. So I don't know that was the way to go either. I don't know what we could have done. Like maybe schedule a taxi, because we saw a couple taxis in town, But I just think with the fluctuation of so many tourists, we heard that that was like the most tourists. His mom was talking to a shop owner and she said that was like the most tourists they had seen in a really long time. I don't know how we could have avoided that, but it took us like 2 hours just to get to the trailhead. It was really frustrating. But I don't know. I mean, they didn't have Uber, so I don't know what we could have done to avoid that issue.
I mean, with the hindsight being 2020, in a perfect world, we just would have went straight to the hop on, hop off bus, because we ended up burning probably 30 minutes to an hour deciding.
Yeah, but your dad was in line the whole time to get tickets.
That's true. It was a line to the bus.
And then it was like a timed thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we got up to where the bus dropped us off. We hiked up to Westeros Farm. We stopped there and got a quick lunch, and it was like $44 for 2 sandwiches and 2 waters. It was ridiculous. You paid for a great view, but honestly, I wish we had just gotten like sandwiches in town and eaten them at that spot.
Yeah.
So then we started the hike from there. Pretty easy-ish hike. I mean, like we were sweating. We didn't wear proper attire. Like we thought it was going to be a lot colder than it was, as every day we felt in Norway. But it was like a beautiful hike. The views were great the entire time. And then the end of the hike is a waterfall, and you hike behind the waterfall. And I had never done that, and it was the coolest thing. It was definitely pretty sketchy. I mean, it's super slippery back there. There's multiple signs that say, like, if you slip and fall, you will die.
Yeah.
Like, straight up, you will die if you fall into this waterfall.
When you're kind of like coming around the bend, you start to see the waterfall. I remember seeing groups of people going behind the waterfall, and
he freaked out.
Sarah and I are pretty adventurous people, and I was like, I don't know if I can go behind that waterfall. It just looked like it was my assumption that there was going to be a guardrail, but I tried to silhouette the guardrail with the people standing behind it, and I was like, I don't even think there's a guardrail.
There was a guardrail, but so it was just a chain.
Guardrail.
Like, it was just a chain. You could easily fall into the chain and over the chain. Like, there was nothing really. I mean, the chain was more to hold on to than anything else.
More of a handrail. Yeah, no, it was because it probably only stood 3 feet tall.
But it was pretty wide behind the waterfall. But I could see the risk. It was, we 1,000,000% would not have done this if we had Beckham with us. Like, there was no way. It was just it was pretty dangerous behind the waterfall. But for 2 very capable, competent adults, it was worth it.
It was just gorgeous. I mean, the whole time we're in Norway, we were talking about how the pictures just don't even do it justice. Looking out across the waterfall to the next mountain and everything was just so serene.
So after the hike, we just decided to book it down the mountain. Our legs were pretty shot by the end of it, but I was like, I can either sit here and wait for a bus for 40 minutes or I can walk back to the ship in 40 minutes. And we had this reservation at this restaurant called Brassier Posten.
So I can see the sign.
I think it's Brassier Posten, and we got some charcuterie there, and it was so good. It was right on the water, beautiful, picturesque restaurant, and the charcuterie was so good. I'm really glad we hiked it down and made it in time, because with the bus, I'm not sure if we would have made it.
Yeah, and that's why we ended up deciding to pull the trigger and just hike down, because we didn't know exactly when the bus was going to show up. And I mean, all's well and well, we made our charcuterie reservation, and I said it was a top tier charcuterie board.
Yeah, it was really good.
The thing that set it apart for me, I've never had with a charcuterie board, was the garlic aioli sauce. That was awesome.
We only had like 45 minutes before we had to make it back to the ship. So it was a pretty short stop, but definitely worth it. It was really, really great. There was also a really good chocolate shop in town. I can't remember what that one was called either, but if I can find it, I will put it in the show notes or the caption below, because that chocolate shop was recommended to me by a few different like YouTubers and blogs. We got a lot of chocolate for souvenirs and stuff. So that was Geiranger. Loved it. That was personally my favorite stop. It obviously wasn't my favorite activity. Paragliding was my favorite activity, but as far as like picturesque and like the place itself, Geiranger was my favorite. And then our last stop was Haugesund. It was Norway Independence Day. So a lot of things were closed and there was a town parade going on, which in theory sounds really great. But when it's a community parade based on like the community schools and like people and businesses that you know nothing about, like it wasn't like a cultural, like it wasn't like Vikings and like people. We waited around for hours and hours and the parade didn't start on time and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Now, all the girls were dressed in traditional Norwegian dress, and we met some of them and learned the backstory of that. And all of them have to be handmade by their mothers or their grandmothers, and they're made of wool, and they're, you know, the interior silk oftentimes matches the top threads. And it was really interesting talking to them about that. The parade itself, though, I just was like, done.
Yeah, about probably 10 minutes in, and we kind of got the vibe. And it was like, it was cool to see. I'm glad that the timing worked out like that because it was, I mean, I don't know what else we would have done in Haugesund. So I'm glad we can say that we were there for Norwegian Independence Day, I guess.
I know what we would have done. We would have gone to the Viking Nordic Center and actually learned about the Vikings.
Okay. Well, yes. And that's what I was going to say about the Vikings not being in the parade was I definitely thought in Norway I was going to get to go to a Viking museum. The one in Bergen was closed and then everything was closed in Haugesund and probably in every other Norwegian town. So didn't get to do any Viking museums.
Okay, I know I keep saying this, but I can't remember what this bakery was called either. So I'll put that somewhere as well.
Oh,
but this bakery that was open was so good. They had like gluten-filled and gluten-free cupcakes. It was so good.
Probably like 20 flavors.
It was really, really good. And we had already had coffee multiple times that day, so we didn't get coffee. But the coffees that I saw looked amazing. Like that shop, I could have gone back there a couple days in a row.
Yeah, that was the best cupcake I had in a while.
So after the parade, we headed back to the ship, and that was our last port. So we sailed back to Southampton, got back on our flight, and came home. But favorite port, Bergen.
And
favorite activity, paragliding.
Yeah.
Favorite activity, paragliding. Favorite port, Geiranger. What was your least favorite?
Least favorite port?
Mm-hmm.
Olden.
Really?
If it weren't for paragliding, there was...
Yeah, but it was beautiful.
Yeah, and that's something I realized...
You liked Haugesund more than Olden.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something I realized after Olden was you don't necessarily go to these ports and maybe even Norway for any sort of hustle bustle or like things to do. You go there for the scenery for the most part. Mm-hmm. But as far as like things to do outside of taking the scenery, Olden, nah.
Okay. I think my least favorite was Haugesund. I just didn't like, honestly, that much about it. The port itself, the activities, I just feel like it was like, no offense to Norway. Like I did love talking to the people there and learning about their Independence Day. Like that was not the part I didn't like. It wasn't, I mean, of the ports, it wasn't my favorite. You want to play some This or That Cruise Edition?
Hit me with it.
All right. Windjammer or My Time Dining?
My Time.
Like main dining room.
Yeah.
Sorrento's or My Time Dining?
Sorrento's.
Arcade or pickleball?
Pickleball.
All right. Magician or musical?
Magician. Pickleball tournament or massage?
Massage.
Sorrento's or whatever, the nachos.
Sorrento's, 100%. Jamie's Italian lunch or dinner?
Dinner.
The library or our balcony?
library.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have said balcony.
Seven Sisters or the big long waterfall name?
Oh, that's hard because we didn't like hike to Seven Sisters, and I loved that we like worked for that waterfall. But then also Seven Sisters is like
410 meters high.
yeah.
Awe-inspiring.
I guess Seven Sisters.
Hmm.
We didn't even really talk about that, but Sisters is in Geiranger. It is in Geiranger, right? Yeah, it's in Geiranger, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's 7 waterfalls, and the ship, when it gets into the fjord, it does a 360 so that everyone from their cabin can view Seven Sisters, which was really beautiful. We sat on our balcony with Beckham and watched that whole thing, and it was a top moment of the trip in general. So, good question.
You have 3 floors to go up. Elevator or stairs?
Oof, that's hard.
3 was my threshold.
Yeah, I want to say stairs.
So privileged.
I want to say stairs, but I feel like
The queue in the elevator was so long.
my facts say that I probably chose elevator more. I don't know. Yeah, the lines at the elevators got so long that the stairs were worth it to me. Well, where to next for each of us? Where to next for you?
South Dakota.
For me, Bermuda. I think that's next.
I don't know. Start a poll. What's more exciting, Bermuda or South Dakota?
This was fun. Thanks for sitting down with me and chatting about Norway and the Royal Caribbean and all the things. It was fun.